talking a little bit about Spurs now. We're talking about in different seasons. Wowzers. Spurs have been struggling. Let's go and speak to Flav Bateman, Spurs fan and content creator, and of course very much part of the talkSPORT family here. Flav, good evening. Welcome to the show. Happy Christmas and Merry New Year.
Thank you, mate, and the same to you as well.
Merry New Year!
Flav, how's it at the moment to be a Spurs fan? I work with Jamie O'Hara, as you well know, and I've had a lot of fun with him. I've had a lot of fun with Jamie this season because there's been some terrible results. There's been some decent ones in amongst it as well, by the way, Villa and Manchester City. But it feels at the moment that Spurs can't quite get going. It feels like he's on a bit of a treadmill, Big Ange, and the injuries haven't helped. But what have your thoughts been of the season so far?
Yeah, it's been super frustrating. I mean, there ain't a Spurs fan out there that's happy about what's going on at the moment. Depends where you're going to lay the blame, though, innit? So, there are fans out there that think that Ange Postecoglou is to blame and that he shouldn't be at the football club anymore. There are other fans, and I sort of include myself in this, in that you can probably look at injuries to key players. Certainly, the centre-back pairing and the goalkeeper has meant that it's much more difficult to build momentum and create consistency. Although it wasn't really there before either, and that's a fair criticism of Ange Postecoglou. But what has become an almost unified belief is that the issue, regardless of who is the manager, when it comes to success at Tottenham, will be down to whether or not Daniel Levy is running the football club or not.
So I'm looking at Ange, and again, we just spoke about Arteta there, that maybe his managerial style and playing Bukayo Saka every single game, or it appears in the big games he has to play, and then some of the games he could perhaps rest him. Is Ange guilty of that? I'm going back to the Chelsea game where two players were played. Romero wasn't fit before when he came in. Van der Ven hasn't been back since. The pair of them. Is there something in that maybe Ange Postecoglou is and his training methods to contribute?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you want to believe, and how much you want to take on board. What goes on in training, we have no idea about, right? No one does. So there is an assumption that there's too much intensity in training, that therefore it leads to muscle injuries. However, picking Romero and Van der Ven, you can look at that and potentially criticise it, because you could almost predict that they weren't going to make the 90 minutes. When the team sheet came out, I was surprised that they were both there, and when they both went on injured, I wasn't surprised. So, but then, what if you're Postecoglou or any manager, any football club, you've got to go by two bits of information. What does the injury room say, the people that run that and the medical side of the business, and what the players say? And if everyone says, yeah, they're fit to play, then he plays. Unless he's really taken the decision there and gone, I'm not going to listen to your advice at all, and you're both playing. I can't imagine that being true. But that would stink of desperation if it was the truth.
Flav, what do you want here? If it were down to you, just genuinely speaking here, do you think that Ange Postecoglou is the right man to lead Tottenham? Do you think that Ange Postecoglou can take Tottenham to the position that you think they should be? You've got a semi-final of a League Cup coming up. Do you think Postecoglou is the right man to lead you into a game of that magnitude? Or if a change is ultimately going to happen, do you think it should happen sooner rather than later?
The answer is, regardless of whoever comes in at this stage, with our injury problems, we'll able to do nothing to change our form. So I would rather have someone who's building something, and someone that has some ideas about where Tottenham are going and that the players have bought into. And when we get that squad back, plus additions in January, see where we're at, and that includes the summer transfer window as well. And let's see where this journey with Postecoglou goes until the end of his contract, which is the end of next year. That's what I think we should do. I'm not representative by any means of how other Tottenham fans think. Obviously, everyone has their own opinions. That's what I think should happen, and that's what I think they should do.
And what's the priorities now, Flav? Is the priority the fact that you are in a League Cup semi-final, which means a couple of games away from Wembley, the potential of winning a trophy, which would, sort of been a very elusive weight, hasn't it, for this trophy, like 2008. Do you think that you just throw all of your eggs into that basket?
Well, if it goes down to the Champions League, we're 6 points off fifth place, which isn't a massive amount. And it's not going to get any... Well, it could get worse. I really hope it doesn't. It obviously could get worse, right? But fingers crossed it doesn't get as bad as it's appearing. And this January month is going to be difficult. The League Cup is a big thing because it's that, as you say, Rory, the elusive trophy. But we've got to play Liverpool, the best team, arguably the best team in Europe, and certainly the best team in the Premier League over 2 legs with a squad that isn't capable of matching them as it stands.
Flav,
So
you can't talk about being only 6 points off. I know that you are factually only 6 points off finishing in the top 5.
What are you saying, Rory?
But
what are you saying?
Well, they're 12th in the league. So in terms of they're 12th.
No, you're asking me if it's a priority. I'm just saying that we are. I'm giving you a fact. We're 6 points off. The priority is the cups for sure. I'm not saying the league.
Right.
For me, I'm saying, like, given the fact that we're trophyless or only have league cups to our name, to me, the League Cup is less important. It's the Europa League that I want to put all our eggs in a basket because it means Champions League next year, but it's also has become a very important trophy. And there was a time, boys, and you'll probably remember this, where Spurs fans were looking down their nose at the Europa League when...
Hold on, you pulled out the Conference League. It wasn't that long ago.
Well, that can get in the bin for sure. But the Europa League, Harry Redknapp and Pochettino wouldn't give it the time of day. Now it's become more and more important, and it's not the strongest competition it's been. There's been other seasons where it's a lot more difficult to win than this year, and that's another reason why I wouldn't replace Postecoglou. So just to answer your question, Rory, but if you take my point about the 6 points away, it is definitely the Europa League.
Flav, where do you sit with the Daniel Levy situation? Because every Spurs fan I've spoken to over the last, it feels like decade, maybe longer, I don't know, maybe shorter, but every Spurs fan, it's a common denominator. They talk about the manager, they get annoyed with what's going on the pitch, whether it be Conte, whether it be Jose, whether it be, I don't know, eventually Pochettino had to leave. There's been other managers, Nuno Espirito Santo, but it all comes back to Daniel Levy. Where do you stand on the Daniel Levy situation? Because he's not going anywhere, is he?
No, he owns the football club. It's his football club, and any kind of movement to remove him from his perspective you would think would fall on deaf ears, because say he thinks the club's going to be worth £1 billion more in 2 years, he's not going to listen to the Spurs fans saying, well, we want to leave you to leave now. He's looking at it and going, well, I don't know, the club's going to be worth X amount in 2 years. I'm staying until I can get that much, whatever it might be. But in terms about whether or not he's right for the job, I've been criticised quite significantly and brutally on Twitter at times for being a bit of a Levy fanboy and an ENIC fanboy. And that isn't the case. What I was merely looking at was the development of the club from where it was when he took it. Now, there are a number of reasons why that happened. As much about the expansion of the Premier League as it is his good work, but he has done good things in order to get Spurs in a position where we are now, which is, in terms of potential, as good as anyone's in the Premier League, right? But that's the problem: is can Daniel Levy make Tottenham, or make us real? Can he realise the potential of which he created? And you can only go by the evidence, which is absolutely not. So it's quickly, or already has arrived at a time where we need someone else to run the football club. Will that happen? No, I can't see it, unfortunately.
And Flav, looking at matters on the pitch, the money that he has been given, the money that Daniel Levy has found for Ange Postecoglou to spend, overall, do you feel like Postecoglou has got a good record in the signing? Do you think you're signing the right players overall?
So one of the biggest issues we've got this season is, if you look at the injury crisis that we've had, is everybody has injury crisis. This is how deep is your squad, how good is your squad in order to deal with them. You can't legislate for the amount of injuries to centre-backs. That's not on Langer and that's not on Daniel Levy. You can't. Losing any team loses 4 of the first-team centre-backs, they're going to be in trouble. But you look at who came in. Dom Solanke, brilliant signing, has been fantastic. Part of the reason Spurs, of course, score so many goals is because of his work, right? But in other areas, you've brought Archie Gray, who's now become essential to us, but way too early, and Berreval, who's he's impressed and he's been fine, but these aren't first team ready players, or certainly not ones most people would throw into their first team in the top 6 of the Premier League. So we chose to bring in these young, interesting players who no doubt their ceiling is through the roof, but when we have issues that we've had in the last month or two, probably don't help in the way that the 2 players that were ready for first team football might have done. So what happened is we speculated on these young players in the summer rather than bringing in first team ready. Where if you look at Chelsea, and this is where the frustration comes from, really. You look at Chelsea and you look at Arsenal, and they buy the players they need in order to do the job. There are issues with Chelsea at the back, maybe, and certainly in the goalkeeper, but they are stacked up top. And while everybody called them a basket case football club, myself included, you look at the amount of depth available to him. It's something that's just it's just redundant at Spurs. Now you look at the way Arsenal went about signing Declan Rice. You ask the question: would Tottenham have ever been in the question? Would ever been in the conversation about signing a player like Declan Rice? And the answer is no. And the reason is why? Because we have as much money as they do. Where is the mentality to go out and get Declan Rice? Where is the absence of that at Tottenham? And it's got to come from Daniel Levy.
Flav, before we let you go, I want to just ask you about Postecoglou's demeanour in front of the press. I don't think he helps himself. He doesn't look particularly comfortable. Some of the questions he gets, his back is up. You can sense it. You can feel it, especially when there's been another defeat or a bad result. I'm not convinced he's adapted that well to life being under the microscope of the Premier League. You know, it's very different I know being Celtic manager, of course it is, you know, it's huge up there, but I just think on this global well, you can do what he did in Celtic. You know, you might be able to do that in Japan and Australia, but, you know, doing this style of football in England, it's going to get questioned when you don't get results. I'm not sure he's particularly great in interviews, to be honest.
To be honest, this has always been the way he is throughout his career. I read his biography, a book that was written about him, called by Vince Rugari, who's a big sports journalist in Australia. But this has always been an issue for him when his back's against the wall, when things aren't going well, or he thinks like the correct amount of due respect is being placed on his project, or certainly when he was back in Australia, the way people thought about soccer over there, as they call it. He would get his back up and he would be abrasive, and in defeat he is always abrasive. It's the way he's always been, and I think part of the reason why he won't change and he won't bring in an element of pragmatism and is dogmatic in the way that he applies himself to his football philosophy is because of what has got him to the Premier League, which is a journey that's never been seen before. So for him, he's like, this will work eventually. I will. This is the way I handle press.
But it won't work in the Premier League. He won't win a cup.
Well, we'll see.
You might win a cup.
We've seen.
No, you might win a cup, but you can't win. You can't. You can't be that. You can't be that. Well, you think you can?
I think with the full squad, yeah, I think we wouldn't have any issues with being top 5, top 4 this year.
But that's so okay, fine. So that if that's the goal, then you might. But you ain't going to win the title like that, are you?
Yeah, but no one said that Chelsea were going to win the title.
No. What I'm saying is, no. Don't what about. What I'm saying to you is, no, but
I'm not what about it.
You just what abouted me, right? You did. But forget Chelsea, right? We're talking about Angie. But what I'm saying is, you might win a cup like that. But in all honesty, you can't approach the Premier League. You've got to look what Nuno Espirito Santo is doing at Forest.
Yeah.
Tailor the opposition. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What Marco Silva did at Stamford Bridge the other day, playing 3 at the back. He ain't going to do that. There's a mixture of naivety and arrogance.
This is what Flav's like, though. Both of those words.
No, Flav's not.
No, he is. I know him well.
No,
trust me.
I don't know that way. You can call it. But what I'm saying is, but you can't just. There's more than one ways to play the game of football. And Angie's like, here's what it's that famous quote. It's who we are, mate. Right?
Yeah.
He'll regret that for the rest of his life. He will.
Yeah. Look, I understand where you're coming from, right? And I've had this conversation with Rory, with you, about this sort of criticism of Ange Postecoglou, and I get it. I understand it. I'm not blind to it. We all aren't, right? And he's saying, I am not going to change, and if it gets me sacked, so be it. Right. Now, if it gets him sacked, all right, well, back where we were, we get another manager, start the cycle again, another 3 years, it happens again. Right. But what if he's right?
Yeah, but
what if we give him what he needs?
He's not, is he?
Right.
We're doing what if he's right?
Because, Rory, I don't want to live in your world. I don't want to live in this world of reality.
I want to live
in a dream world where Spurs win the league.
Buy a one-way ticket to the real world. He's not right. He's wrong. You're 12th in the league.
Look, I've only got the top half of the table here, and I can't see you.
See, I told you, naive, James.
How many times have you said that?
This guy.
Flav, listen, appreciate your time, my friend. Merry Christmas,
Cheers,
Happy New Year.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.